You've tried everything from pouring the harsh blue liquid down the drain to attacking your sink with a plunger until your arm ached. And for an hour, the water went down like it used to. But then the sour smell comes back, the pool sits around the drain again, and you start wondering if it's possible to fix it all. Meanwhile, in Japan, they have a simple trick that unclogs drains in seconds. Their kitchen drains run clear for years using two things already in the house: no jug from the store and no plumber at the door. We're going to do this in two parts because one without the other is half a job. First, we'll make little cleaning cubes you keep in the freezer and drop down the drain when you need one. Then I'll show you how to do the hot water flush that goes with them, which is the part that does the real scouring. The cube does one job, the flush does the other, and together they will unclog your drain forever. But first, I want to hear from you. What have you been using to clean your sink and drain till now? And did it work? Let me know in the comments. People talk about a clogged drain like it's loose garbage sitting in the pipe, something that dropped in by accident and can be pushed out with the right tool. Well, this is not the case. Every time you rinse a plate, warm grease slides down as a thin liquid. And a few inches below the sink, it hits the cold wall of the pipe. Fats solidify below roughly 40 degrees Celsius. So the grease hardens on contact and sticks in a thin film along the inside curve. Soap binds into that film and traps flecks of food. The next rinse lays down another layer, and the next, growing inward while the plug hole at the top stays the same size it always was. By the time the water stands in your sink, that pipe has been narrowing for months on the inside curve, where we can't see it. It's a bunch of years of buildup. This is why the harsh chemicals from the cleaning aisle solves nothing that lasts. Most of those bottles are sodium hydroxide or sulfuric acid thickened up to sink through standing water, and they work by dissolving whatever they touch. The trouble is they fall straight through the middle of the pipe, eat a hole through the plug at the bottom, and leave the coating on the walls almost exactly where they found it. The water runs again, you feel like you've won, and the pipe keeps narrowing on schedule. Keep the jug on the shelf for the day the drain has already closed. That's the only honest use for it. There's a third thing people try, and you'll see it recommended everywhere online. Baking soda down the drain, then a cup of vinegar, and you stand back to watch the volcano. Don't bother trying this. The reaction neutralizes itself into salt water inside the pipe within seconds and does almost nothing to do the coating. It's theater and doesn't solve any real problem. The fizz you can see in the sink is the whole show, and none of it reaches the film on the pipe wall in any meaningful way. What that coating actually needs is something gritty to scrape it in place and heat to carry the loosened grease past the trap before it can harden again. This is what the Japanese approach gets right and Western advice keeps getting wrong. You don't fight the pipe on the bad day. You keep it clean with something cheap for twice a week. The only thing that works to completely unclog your drain are these cubes. Take half a lemon and cut it up rough, then pick the seeds out and set them aside so nothing turns bitter. Drop the pieces, peel and all, into a blender. The peel matters as much as the flesh because the oil in the skin carries most of the grease cutting and the clean smell. Add just enough water to cover the lemon, no more, and 2 tablespoons of plain table salt. Salt is the working part. It's abrasive against a hardened film, and the citric acid from the lemon runs at about pH 2, which is acidic enough to lift the soap residue holding the coating together. Beat it all for a good minute until the lemon breaks right down, then strain it through a kitchen sieve and press the pulp with the back of a spoon to get the last of the liquid out. The pulp goes on the compost or in the garden, never back down the drain, because pulp is exactly the sort of thing we're trying to keep out of the pipe. Stir a single drop of dish soap into the strained liquid, pour it into an ice cube tray, and freeze it solid. A few hours will do. Overnight is better. The reason for the freezing is that a liquid poured down the drain is gone in a second, but a cube has to sit at the mouth and melt slow, releasing the salt and lemon right at the spot for the whole time it takes to disappear. Cold also firms the grease on the pipe wall so the salt has something solid to scrape against, the way a set stain lifts easier than a smeared one. That principle of slow, steady, cheap, and done often runs through almost everything the Japanese do around the house. It's not just the drain, it's the pan you don't scrub raw, the cloth you don't throw away, the small habits that save a fortune over a lifetime. I have written a book that gathers all of the money-saving methods the Japanese have used for centuries to keep their land, home, and family in good order. It is at thejapanesemethod.com. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy and start saving money today. Now, the best way of using these cubes is to drop one cube down the drain, then fill a bucket with the hottest water your tap will give, or a kettle just off the boil, above 60 degrees, so the fats stay liquid long enough to travel past the trap. Give the cube about a minute at the mouth of the drain to release its salt and oil, then pour the whole bucket down in one steady go. The cube does the scrubbing on the way down. The flush carries the loosened grease out past the bends where it likes to gather. A trickle cools before it's traveled a foot down the pipe, so you want real volume behind it. A full bucket all at once comes down like a small flood. If you have a double sink, do each side. If you have a garbage disposal, run it a moment first to clear it, then drop the cube and pour. Do this twice a week. That rhythm is the whole secret. Not one heroic clean, but a small steady habit the grease can't outlast. First time you do this, it helps to know what right looks like. Set the cube in the drain hole and it'll sit there half in, half out, because the standard tray makes them slightly wider than most kitchen drain openings. That's fine. It's meant to sit at the mouth and work down as it melts. You'll see a thin ring of yellow liquid start to pool around the edge within about 30 seconds, and that's the lemon oil beginning to release. Don't rush it with the water yet. Give it a full minute so the salt has time to settle into the top of the coating. Then bring the bucket and pour it down in one steady arm, not a nervous trickle. You'll hear the sound change halfway through the pour. It starts as the flat rush of water hitting a dry pipe, and about 3 seconds in it drops into a lower, softer sound as the pipe fills briefly and the water starts moving through the trap under pressure. That change is the flush doing its job. If you never hear it, your pour was too slow. 10 minutes after, put your head near the drain and take a careful breath. It should smell faintly of lemon and warm metal, with the sour edge gone or noticeably backed off. The next morning, check again. If the sour smell has crept back overnight but is lighter than it was before, that's normal for the first few sessions. The coating is still there, but the top layer of it has moved. You're at the start of a slow lift, not an instant fix. The habit works on a timeline, and knowing the timeline keeps you doing it. Week 1, you'll notice the smell after cooking clears faster than it used to. A day of frying that used to leave the sink sour until the next morning will be back to neutral by bedtime. That's the first sign the coating has stopped growing. By week 2, the water starts to sound slightly different going down. The slow suck of a half-blocked drain gives way to a cleaner rush, and a full sink of washing up water empties in noticeably less time than it did a fortnight ago. You're not imagining it. The pipe is a fraction wider on the inside than it was. Around week 4, the sink stops standing at all after a big load of dishes. Water goes in and water goes out at the same rate, which is what a healthy drain does. If you're still seeing a slow pool at this stage, you have an older coating and need to run 2 cubes per session for another month. That's not a failure of the method, it's just how much there was to lift. By month 3, the cube itself dissolves faster than it did at the start because the pipe wall is smoother and the water gets past it quicker. That's the milestone that tells you the coating is genuinely thin now, and you can drop the frequency to once a week for maintenance from there on. 3 things go wrong for people, and each one tells you something specific about your pipe. The first is the water still stands after 2 weeks of twice a week cubes. That means your coating is older and thicker than the method can lift at single strength, and you need to double up. 2 cubes back to back, followed by the full bucket 3 times a week for a month. It sounds like a lot, but it's still cheaper and gentler than a single call out, and the coating will give way. The second is the sour smell comes back within a day of the flush, even though the water is draining fine. The trap under the sink is holding water that's gone stale, and no amount of drain work will fix that on its own because you're only cleaning the pipe past the trap, not the trap itself. Fill a jug with hot water and pour it slow so the trap feels fresh, then follow with a cube and bucket as normal. That refill fixes the source of the smell in about a minute. The third is a gurgle from the drain when the water goes down. That sound is air moving past a partial blockage further along the line, usually where the kitchen drain joins the main stack. It's not something the cube reaches, but it does tell you the household drain system is under pressure somewhere, and you should stay on the twice a week habit rather than drop to weekly, because you're doing preventive work on a system that's already under strain. If the gurgle gets louder over a month, that's when a plumber earns their call-out fee, and no home method will substitute. There are also a few household situations where the recipe itself needs adjusting. If you're on hard water, the minerals in your tap water compete with the citric acid in the cube and cut its scrubbing effect. Add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the cube mix before you freeze it. The extra acid load makes up for what the mineral content will neutralize, and you'll get the same lift on the coating that a saltwater household gets from the standard recipe. If your house has old cast iron drainage pipes, skip the salt entirely and use 2 tablespoons of baking soda in its place. Salt accelerates rust on old iron fittings over years of contact, and while the amount from 1 cube is small, twice a week for a decade adds up. Baking soda gives you a milder abrasive and a gentler pH that won't shorten the life of the pipe. If you're on a septic system rather than main sewer, the cube itself is fine, but halve the frequency to once a week. The citric acid load twice a week can knock back the bacteria in the septic tank that break down waste, and a weaker tank means more pump outs. Once a week gives you the same preventive effect on the drain without stressing the tank. You'll still be well ahead of anyone using the caustic jug, which septic tanks handle even worse. A year of this habit and the pipe is a different piece of equipment. The water goes down with a soft, quick sound instead of the slow suck of a coated line, and a full sink drains in the time it takes to dry your hands. The cabinet under the sink stops carrying that faint sour edge that most kitchens have without anyone quite noticing, and the whole room smells cleaner between cooking days for reasons you can't immediately point at. The sink itself changes too. The metal around the drain hole stays shinier because the daily flush of lemon and hot water keeps the top of the pipe clean, where you can see it, and the little ring of gray film that used to build up around the plug is gone. On a big cooking day, the smell clears within an hour of finishing the washing up, not the next morning. None of this is dramatic. That's the point. A well-tended pipe doesn't announce itself. It just stops being something you think about, which is the mark of a household running the way it should. And all of this will only cost you a couple of dollars. A bag of table salt runs about $2, a lemon 50 cents, and a tray of cubes uses roughly 30 cents of ingredients and lasts a month. Over a year, you've spent under $5 and never called a plumber. The Western habit is to wait for the trouble and then fight it with the strongest thing on the shelf. The Japanese habit is to keep the trouble from ever happening, because once it does, the solution is always harder than the prevention. Go make a tray of cubes today and start the twice a week habit. Then come back down to the comments and tell me how your drain runs after a month, whether the sour smell is gone. Thanks a lot for watching. Now, next week we're covering the Japanese method for bringing a rusted cast iron pan back to life without scrubbing the seasoning away. See you then.